I mean, I put myself through some fucking pain and some shit, and I needed fuel for that from somewhere. I didn't know at the time a pathway from that into this career or that career or this and that. Would Dorian Yates the bodybuilder exist? No, I don't think so, man. And something opens up because of that, and it starts coming out and you didn't even know it was there.
As a six-time Mr. Olympia winner, Dorian Yates remains a potent figure in the bodybuilding game today. The road wasn't always clear-cut for Yates, as the legend has shared how his bodybuilding career came to be while serving time in prison. Despite the hardships, Dorian Yates found refuge in jail and began a successful career as a bodybuilder thereafter. Today we hear in his own words how this stressful period shaped his future. Self-admitted truth. Admittedly, Yates began his career in a jail cell, but was referred to a powerlifting gym by a security guard. After joining the Birmingham gym, Yates is confident that self-discovery and facing adversity go hand in hand. Over the years, Yates' opinions relating to the sport have always been valued. From speaking about his diets to showing off his physique at an older age, Dorian Yates remains a pertinent fixture within the bodybuilding community. He is one of the leading voices in the sport of bodybuilding and has led a career filled with incredible achievements. Despite starting his career during a dark time, Yates capitalized and found success in the end. Small-town boy. Right from the get-go, Dorian Yates seemed destined for a life other than bodybuilding. Growing up in a small farm in Hurley, outside of Birmingham, England, the young Dorian would meet tragedy early in life, losing his father at the age of 13 to heart attack. At the age of 14, city life would meet the country boy, Yates, as his mother and younger sister moved to the city of Birmingham after his mom met another man. Fate would be unkind once again to Dorian, as his mom's beau would pass away before even tying the knot. Affected perhaps by all the sudden losses, Dorian melted into the gang life, donning a skinhead, steel-toed boots, and hanging out in clubs. Lacking the guidance of his mother, who headed back to the countryside, Dorian got arrested at 19 years old, caught by the police after a violent riot erupted. A turning point. Confinement proved to be a turning point in Dorian Yates' then largely insignificant life. Detained 6 months at Watton Youth Detention Center, the young troublemaker found the merits of powerlifting, impressing the guards, who were amazed at how strong the teen was. Unbeknownst to everyone around him, life at prison started Dorian Yates' march to the most prestigious halls of bodybuilding. Dorian started training in a gym soon after getting out, and at 21 would have his first taste of competition towards bodybuilding stardom. Nevertheless, as Dorian was slowly gaining headway towards bodybuilding stardom, Lee Haney was already making a mark worldwide. Born in 1959, just 2 years ahead of Dorian, Lee would embrace the sport of bodybuilding way earlier than his future English competitor. Starting lifting weights at the age of 14, Lee would transform from a skinny, harmless kid on the block into a huge mass of incredibly superhuman proportions, accentuated by the trademark small waist and wide shoulders. True enough, in his early 20s, Lee would initiate a bodybuilding record that would smash everyone else's before him, Arnold's including. For many puny humans who didn't see the insides of a gym, it seemed Haney's symmetry and mass can only be attributed to a Greek god that has come down to Earth to pay a visit. From 1984 down to 1991, a record 8 straight years, the Sandow Trophy wouldn't change hands, held only by the era's king of bodybuilding, Lee Haney. Never has there been a mass monster who dominated the global stage this much and with wanton abandon, setting Arnold's inhuman record years before aside like child's play. However, it's during such reign that the seeds of Dorian Yates' ambitions would be sown, a growing unstoppable desire that would eventually push the Englishman to cast his lot on the world stage, however slim it may be. Any pundit worth his name and salt would agree, Dorian's chances of ever catching up with Lee seemed improbable. By the time the 5'10" Englishman took bodybuilding seriously in 1983, Haney was to capture his first Mr. Olympia crown a year later, in 1984. Still, Dorian labored, idolizing Haney and biding his time.
When I was in there, I realized, like, fuck this, I don't want to be, I don't belong here at all. Off the rails a little bit for a couple of years, and I got sent to a detention center.
I was stronger than everybody else and had a better physique. I was doing weights in there, and I quickly recognized, and so did the prison officers, and so did the other inmates.
Slaying the dragon. To compete at the level of Lee, Dorian knew he needed to up his game. He realized that his chances of stealing the scene were closing up on him, and if he didn't make a run for it, his body would eventually betray him, being far from its peak. Thus, it was now or never. The million-dollar question, though, was how. Eventually, Dorian braced himself and faced his demons, and that meant changing his perspective, his mental outlook. In an interview, the Englishman admitted, "Wow, this is Lee Haney, the icon we are all trying to aspire to. "This is the guy I am trying to beat." He concluded, "I can't be in awe of this guy because if that is your attitude, then you're not going to have much chance of winning." Armed with such resolve and working his butt off in the gym day in and day out, Dorian would put everything on the line, embracing his lifelong dream instead of listening to his fear. The decision would prove pivotal and would soon pay off in time. Finally, the English latecomer would be able to prove his mettle against his most cherished idol, as the two titans would clash in an epic battle for the Mr. Olympia in 1991. The Big Battle. And if there was anyone on that stage that could hold a candle to Lee, it would have to be Yates. At the onset, it looked like a draw, as the Englishman matched Lee's strong points mano a mano. However, even with his years of preparation, Dorian would go home empty-handed that year, with Lee bagging the Sandow once more on their first and last showing together as Mr. O competitors. The good news is the American won at a slim margin, being beat by Dorian in one of the rounds. That small win would prove to be a huge victory for Dorian, who was now convinced he had a legit claim to win the most coveted bodybuilding competition in the world. And just like that, the year thereafter, in 1992, Lee would decide not to compete in the Mr. O, having carved an 8-year unbeaten record and perhaps sensing a possible upset. The time was right for a changing of the guards. Soon the unbelievable granite mass that is Dorian Yates would dominate the global bodybuilding scene, earning for himself the moniker The Shadow for his uncanny ability to emerge seemingly from out of nowhere time and again to compete and to win. The Sandow Trophy. For once, he finally got hold of the Sandow Trophy, which he did that year in 1992. Dorian would hang on to it for 6 consecutive years, only relinquishing the much-acclaimed title to future stars in 1998. He may not have defeated his hero, but Dorian Yates sure gave Lee Haney a run for his money. Not bad for somebody who started late in the sport. Had Dorian Yates settled for less in just being good, he would never be able to slay the dragon and become great. Today, Dorian Yates ranks 4th, 6 wins 1992 to 1998 in terms of total number of Mr. Olympia wins. Arnold is 3rd with his 7 wins, and taking the top spot are Lee Haney and Ronnie Coleman, who each garnered 8 Mr. O wins. In one way or the other, each champion learned from one another, and in this sense taught each other. In doing, each legend passed the baton of unquestionable excellence to the next, showing where improvements could still be made. Had it not been for the unbelievable physique of Sergio Oliva, Arnold may not have dug deeper to achieve an even more spectacular showing. And were it not for the sheer immensity, symmetry, and definition of Lee Haney, Dorian Yates may not be able to bring the bestest of the best out of himself. The minute he saw him, Arnold was in awe of Oliva, perhaps the only bodybuilder to inflict such inferior thoughts to another legend. Likewise, Dorian worshipped at the altar of Lee before finally growing over his adulation in order to come out as his own. That's all for this video, folks. See you another time.